Hello, beautiful humans. So in this video, I want to talk about 5 ways that you can read in an embodied way. I love reading so much, and I've gone through moments in my life where reading has felt like just one more thing. And I'm multitasking, and I'm reading a few pages, and I'm scrolling and texting and reading a few pages, and I have read entire books without actually reading them. Can you relate to that? And I'm at a point in my life where everything can be a ritual. Everything can be an embodiment practice, right? And everything is so much more enjoyable, fulfilling, and nourishing, and it can be an act of self-care if we're in it in totality. So here's 5 ways to read in an embodied way. That's a mouthful. So the first thing is sink in. Turn your phone, here's the invitation. Turn the phone on airplane mode. So I'm not a fan of Kindles. You guys know me. I'm a digital detox diva. So I'm a fan of paperback books. So give yourself an hour, half hour, even 15 minutes. Carve out the time. So set the container, the masculine energy, and put your phone on airplane mode. So that's the first thing, is to sink in and not multitask. When you're reading a physical book, do just that. Hone in your energy. You could even take a few deep breaths before doing so. So sink in. The second thing is create a little ritual space where you read. Reading as ritual. This is like a little cozy nook, right? One of those like beautiful papasan chairs, a hammock if you live in warmer weather, a beautiful futon with plush pillows and house plants and candles. So create a dojo, a reading nook space. That's all you do there, is read. You don't sit there and scroll social media later in the day. You don't sit there and eat your lunch. You just read, and that's the sacred space where that's all you do. The third tip to embodied reading as ritual is to activate all your senses, right? Sensuality. This gets us out of the head, right? So if you're having a lot of frenetic energy in your head, and then you dive into a book, you're gonna be digesting that book from the head brain, and not from your heart, and not from your gut, and not from your womb, and not from your body. So again, remember my last tip is to set up a little reading nook, a little reading ritual space, and maybe get a little bit of aromatherapy. Take a few deep breaths, 3 to 6 grounding breaths beforehand. This one has lemongrass and orange in it if I'm doing like a little daytime Saturday morning read. I also like to use lavender and vetiver if I'm reading at night. Light a candle. The flame of a candle calls forth the spirit of your soul. Light some incense, burn some sage, you know? You're in your nook. Your phone is on airplane mode. Your senses are activated and the inspiration is moving, meaning you'll be a receptive vessel to what you're reading. Here's the other thing too. I like to keep in my little reading nook like a little notebook with some colored pencils or some highlighters. So if I'm reading a book that's a little bit more like self-development and there's a lot of like data, I will highlight it the first time around or use some inspirational colored pencils. And then I'll go back once I'm done with that chapter and reread what I highlighted and put it in a notebook. So I'm not breaking my attention by constantly putting a note on my phone, you know, making a note of that. Like I'm, again, in it in totality. That is the path of Tantra, is the path of totality. Whatever you're doing it wholeheartedly. The last thing, I'm a huge advocate of this. Now this was inspired by being a minimalist and being a nomad, is I can't be buying a new book every other week and lugging them around. So as I became a minimalist and as I started traveling, I had to reread my books. And I love it now. And it's actually a practice, even now I'm grounded, that I will continue. So I like to read books 2, 3, 4 times over a year or 2. And again, the first time I read it, I just read it. I let the teachings become embodied. Remember, I'm using my senses. I'm in my body when I'm reading. So the teachings, the things I'm learning, the poetry I'm hearing will land in my body because I'm home when I'm reading. And then I'll read it a second time and highlight. And then I'll go through it a third time and take notes on what I've highlighted. And then sometimes a year or two later, I'll feel the hit to read it again, and it's an entirely new experience because I've changed and I'm a new experience reading the book. So those are my 5 tips for reading as ritual. Reading so that it feels nourishing is sink in, don't multitask, put your phone on airplane mode. Create a ritual space for the reading, a little reading dojo or cozy nook in your house, and do just that there, not other things. Really intentional. Incorporate sensuality, your senses, light a candle, burn some sage, get the cozy socks on, use some aromatherapy. Find an inspiring journal and some colored pencils to doodle and take notes, make it pretty. And then lastly, repetition. In the Taoist practice, they say insight comes through repetition. I say this to my students and clients all the time. Read it, awesome. Read it again. Read it again. Virtue comes through repetition. So those are my 5 tips. It changes something that feels like one more thing, something that we're doing that's using the head brain into a sacred, embodied ritual. And then, my friends, the teachings sink into your bones. I'm gonna link below, if you're watching this on YouTube, a summer reading list for you. 8 books that I recommend for you to read that are great for the lower energy centers in your nervous system. If you're watching this on Instagram, I'll leave the link for my summer reading list in my bio. Drop a comment below, let me know if you do any of these practices and what your relationship is with reading. Sending you love.